and welcome back to my channel. In today's video, we are making Doug Ford's famous cherry cheesecake recipe. If you're not familiar with Doug Ford, he is the premier of Ontario, and for all of my American viewers, the closest equivalent would be kind of like the governor of your state. So early last year when the pandemic first started, Doug Ford released his famous cherry cheesecake recipe kind of as a fun activity that we could do at home while we were in our first lockdown. So fast forward to present day in Ontario where I live, we are on our third or fourth lockdown. Honestly, I can't even keep track anymore. But we are also under a strict stay-at-home order. So I thought, why not? This is the perfect time to finally try Doug Ford's famous cherry cheesecake. If you're new to my channel, just a quick intro. Hi and welcome. My name's Nicole and I'm just a gal that loves food. I love baking, I love cooking, and I love sharing my recipes with you guys. I post weekly on YouTube, so if you love food and you love watching recipe videos, definitely subscribe to my channel. Alright guys, I cannot wait to get into this video, but before we get started, if you like this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, and if you'd like to see more recipe videos from me, subscribe to my channel. Also, make sure to hit that notification bell so you never miss any of my upcoming videos. Let's get started. Okay. Before we get started, just a quick disclaimer that this video does not reflect any of my personal political views. This is just going to be a fun video where I try Doug Ford's famous cheesecake recipe and let you guys know what I think about it. Okay, let's go.
Hi everyone. Today we're going to make the famous Premier's cheesecake.
Okay, Doug Ford's cheesecake, let's do this. So first step, in a medium bowl, we're going to add in 3 packets of Dream Whip. Then to our Dream Whip, I'm adding half a cup of 2% milk. Then, according to the recipe, I'm going to take my hand mixer and I'm going to blend the 2 ingredients together until stiff peaks start to form. Okay, once the peaks have formed, I'm going to turn my hand mixer off and I'm going to set this in the fridge while we work on our crust.
Put a little butter, put a little graham cracker, a little bit of sugar. Oh, beautiful.
All right, so it's crust time. So for the crust, I'm gonna add in half a brick of unsalted butter and 2 packages of graham cracker crumbs, which is the exact same brand he's using in the video, by the way. While I was pouring in the crumbs, I noticed this is a lot of crumbs compared to the butter that we added, but hey, I'm just following his recipe. And once done, I'm also gonna add in 1 cup of sugar. Then, according to the recipe, I'm just supposed to heat these ingredients on the stove until I get some type of crust consistency. This is where we ran into problem number 1. So I had this pot on the stove forever and the butter would just not melt, and I'm assuming it's because I had an incredible amount of graham cracker crumbs in my pot. So I ended up picking the butter out from my pot and melting it separately, then putting it back in. Problem number 2. I also noticed that the half brick of butter that we added was just not cutting it for the amount of graham cracker crumbs that we added, so I actually melted the other half brick of butter and added it to this pot as well. As you can see, the consistency is not even crust-like or not even close, but I feel like I've altered this recipe enough and we're just gonna go with it. Now that our crust is done, I'm just gonna set this off to the side and it's time to prep our baking dish. So the suggested size for this recipe is a 9 by 13 inch dish, which is the exact same size I'm using in this video. Then in the recipe, it says to press this crust on the bottom and sides of your dish. Can we just talk about how much crust is actually in my dish right now? This cheesecake is going to be 70% crust and 30% filling. Also, my crust looks nothing like his in the video. How his is so thin, I have no idea. Alright friends, while our crust is baking, it's time to work on our cream cheese filling. So to our Dream Whip concoction that has been chilling in the fridge, it's time to add in 3 bricks of softened cream cheese. And then using a hand mixer on low speed, I'm gonna mix until our cream cheese is all nice and smooth. Then to our cream cheese, we're gonna add in half a cup of powdered sugar, and I'm gonna add this gradually to avoid the powdered sugar cloud of death. Once our powdered sugar has been thoroughly mixed in, that is it for our filling, and it should look super smooth and silky. So we're gonna set this aside and work on our crust again. So after 20 minutes in the oven, our crust should look something like this. To be honest, it looks a little overdone, Doug Ford, but that's okay. He looks very, very proud of his cheesecake crust. Let's see how mine turned out of the oven. Oh look, it looks the exact same because it's so thick. Anyways, moving on, I am done talking about this crust, but the next step is to just pour the filling directly into our crust. Not gonna lie, this filling looks spectacular and it smells darn delicious. Also, as I predicted earlier, this cheesecake is going to be 70% crust and 30% cheesecake filling. So if you're not a fan of that, make sure to alter the recipe. Okay, so once our cheesecake filling is nice and even throughout the crust, it's time to chill this bad boy for about 1 hour in the fridge. And once our cheesecake has chilled, it should look something like this, and it's time to top with our cherry pie filling. So I am actually not a fan at all of cherry pie filling. It's probably one of my least favorites, but looking at how it looks on top of this cheesecake, it is so stunning and it's so reminiscent of a classic cheesecake. So great job, Doug Ford. Look-wise, this cheesecake is A++. One thing to note while I was making this cheesecake is that I noticed that the consistency of the filling is not very firm. So this cheesecake recipe isn't going to give you that firm New York style cheesecake. It's going to be more of a soft mousse-like texture, which is not a bad thing at all. I actually prefer cheesecakes that are on the softer side. Alright friends, once your cheesecake has chilled for 2 hours, it's time to enjoy.
That, my friends, is the Premier's cheesecake.
Oh, he looks so proud of his cheesecake. Alright friends, we are done making Doug Ford's famous cheesecake. I cannot wait to cut into this bad boy and try it out. So as you can see from the slice I just made, this cheesecake is very crusty. But let's move on to our scorecard to rate our experience with Doug Ford's cheesecake. Alright guys, that is how you make the Premier's famous cherry cheesecake recipe. Now let's rate my experience using this scorecard. So the first criteria on our scorecard is taste. Honestly, I'm gonna give this a big 10 out of 10 because it was darn delicious and you can't really go wrong with sugar and cream cheese. Also, like I mentioned, I don't even like cherry pie filling, but somehow it worked in this recipe and I really loved it. Moving on to our second criteria, the recipe. So as you guys saw in the beginning, we had a couple hiccups with the crust because the measurements were so wacky and also the ratio between the filling versus the crust was not ideal. So I'm gonna give this a 6 out of 10. Number 3, was this recipe easy to follow? I'm gonna give this an 8 out of 10. I mean, it's a pretty simple recipe, doesn't require a lot of bake time, but I think that he could have provided more direction and instruction in his video, and especially if you are a beginner baker, it might be a little bit confusing without that extra direction. And lastly, do I personally recommend making this recipe? You know what? I'm gonna say yes. As I said, this recipe is super simple. The cheesecake came out so delicious. And also, if you notice, the portion is so big and massive that you could actually share this cheesecake and eat it together with your family. Or if you live in Ontario, you can share this cheesecake with your household. Alright guys, those are my honest thoughts about Doug Ford's famous cherry cheesecake recipe. If you end up recreating this recipe, make sure to tag him on Instagram and let him know what you guys think. Also, if you haven't already, you can follow me on my other social media accounts on Instagram, also on TikTok. I share a lot of food related content on there as well that you might enjoy. Alright guys, that is it for today's video. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. And if you haven't already and you'd like to see more recipe videos from me, subscribe to my channel. Also make sure to hit that notification bell so you never miss any of my upcoming videos. Thank you so much for watching and I'll see you next time.